Hello, dear viewers, dear students, friends, research scholars, and teachers. This is Dr. Mudassir, and I welcome you all to my channel, Mountain Sociologist. Today, we will be discussing the sociological interpretations of crime, that is, criminology. Criminology is basically it provides us with different perspectives and insights about crime. Though there are many different perspectives and dimensions of understanding and the study and research on crime, but sociology has its own approaches, it has its own perspectives of looking at crime, the different situations, particularly in which crime happens, and different causes. And of course, there have been lot of debate and discussion on crime. Many sociologists and criminologists have come and they have uh, proposed their theories. In short period of time, I will try my best to look into the various perspectives which are very much helpful for the study of crime at graduate level and at higher levels as well. The sociological approach to crime actually explains it mainly in terms of the social environment to which such persons are exposed. If you look at the earlier works like Chicago School, for example, they have the the scholars of Chicago School, they have correlated criminology or the study of crime with social disorganization, mainly with urban social disorganization, or we can say with pathology, social pathology. In my last lectures, we were discussing about Emile Durkheim, and in his work, The Rules of Sociological Method, and also in Suicide, on which I have separate lectures on my channel, these scholars, including Durkheim, they have argued that that crime actually happens because of lack of moral regulation and lack of social control, which becomes the main cause and main factor for crime and deviance. On the other hand, if you look at Merton, R.K. Merton links deviant behavior. Most of the sociologists will use the term deviant behavior because they feel that crime is more often a legal term. And they have resorted to the term deviance or deviant behavior. And Merton again, he has linked deviant behavior with the dysfunctions of aspirations of individuals and the access to opportunities. Means, according to Merton, when the individual aspirations are not met, means when an individual fails to get his aspirations regarding job or regarding life, different life needs, whatever an individual needs for a good life, then he or she will resort to crime. One of the beautiful discussions about crime and criminology has been put forward by Sutherland, of course, because most of the scholars and students of MA level, then they might have gone through the theory of Sutherland, the theory called differential association. In differential association, Sutherland has argued that actually crime happens when a person finds himself in a crime prone situation. Thus, individuals become criminals only when they get a favorable environment for it. Means the environment is the main causative factor for crime. And on the other hand, if you look at the control theory, it examines the connection between criminal behavior and weakness or absence of certain social bonds or family ties. That is conformity, lack of conformity. So, two different perspectives. Sutherland focuses on the situational perspective, and control theory examines and it focuses. According to this theory, the main causative factor is when it is the lack of conformity. So there is some sort of means resemblance between the control theory of crime or criminology and what has been put forward by Emile Durkheim in his major works. Means overall, the lack of social control and moral regulation is responsible for crime. So far, this is what the sociologists say. Though there will be more criminological perspectives which I will be highlighting here. But first of all, I must look at the major perspectives. First, I have already pointed out that is Sutherland's differential association theory, which is simply a situational approach to crime. Means a person falls into crime because of the situational perspective. And similarly, if we look at the other major perspectives, the next one must be the biological theory as proposed by Cesar Lombroso and William Sheldon, because this was at that time and maybe right now also one of the most controversial explanations of crime, because Caesar and Sheldon, they have attributed crime, they have given the explanations of crime, or they are explaining criminology on the basis of some physical features, on the basis of the feature of the sickle, as Cesar Lombroso has done extensive research on the features of the sickle and its associations with criminal behavior. And later William Sheldon has took forward the tradition, and he has associated crime with physical features like somebody with a strong physique, with an athletic body, is more likely to commit crime. And also they have linked crime and criminal behavior to genetics, to genes. This is biological theory, where biological features, or more precisely physical features, are being held responsible for crime or criminal activities and criminal behavior. And one perspective which has very much uh, impacted me, that is the victim precipitation theory, or it is in so many books it is also called as the victimization perspective, and also known as the victim blaming theory in common languages. Blaming theory or victimization. Victim precipitation theory, actually it explains crime by highlighting the role of the victim himself or herself in crime. And this perspective resembles with other other theories like lifestyle theory and deviant place theory. According to this one, that is victim precipitation theory, it focuses on characteristics of the victim which are responsible, the characteristics which are responsible for the precipitation of the crime itself. For example, belonging to certain ethnicity, belonging to certain race, and belonging to certain sexual orientations, or belonging to a particular gender. So obviously things like hate crime fall into this category, and that is why this perspective, that is victim precipitation theory, has been subjected to much criticism in sociology and criminology as well. And but victim blaming theory, on the other hand, which has much resemblance with victim precipitation. In fact, I have found that most books on criminology, they use the two terms interchangeably. Means they explain victim precipitation as well as victim blaming similarly on similar literal accounts. But to me, I believe that they are two different perspectives. Victim precipitation, I have already told that it is based on the characteristics of the victim. What characteristics the victim possesses and why he or she was subjected to crime, like ethnicity, race, sexual orientation, etc., as I have mentioned. But victim blaming theory here, the main explanation that is proposed here is that the victim himself or herself has a role in crime. Means wearing short clothes. We can give examples like wearing short clothes, or uh, something like that, or behaving like social, doing such social actions, or behaving in the ways which catches attention of criminals, which catches attention of, we can give examples of rape. And this is happening in India, as it is being highlighted by media also, that the role of the woman, or role of girls in rape, means she was wearing such and such clothes. So there is a perspective which is here known as victim blaming. It is one of the perspectives of criminology. Though, of course, it is again being criticized, but because most of the perspectives in criminology, they have not been spared. Definitely, they have been subject to a lot of criticism. There is a lot of debate going on over them. And as I said earlier, that these major perspectives, like biological theory, like this victim precipitation theory, or differential association by Sutherland, there are other major perspectives, that is lifestyle theory and deviant place theory. According to lifestyle theory, I can give an example that an addict is an easy victim. Lifestyle. So here the crime is explained on the basis of being, on the basis that the victim, or the person who is doing the crime, they have certain characteristics, special characteristics, and they are in certain special situations. That is why crime happens. For example, an addict, a drug addict, he may go to bars, he or she may go to clubs or pubs, and because he or she is prone to drug addiction, he may fall victim to crimes like murder, crimes like rape, crimes like abduction, or even looting. Another example for lifestyle theory can be wearing expensive jewelry. Nowadays, quite often, we see news about chain snatching by bikers. Two bikers will come wearing helmet, and they will snatch the golden chains from the neck, while from the necks of women while walking or in the shopping malls. So lifestyle theory explains crime on such attributes, that it is actually the lifestyle of the people who are being victimized. It is their lifestyle which becomes the explanation, or the cause, or the factor for crime. Similarly, deviant place theory, I call it wrong place at wrong time. This theory explains it on the basis of a person being at a wrong place, in a wrong situation, where he or she should not have been there at that time. For example, a girl returning from office, returning from school, late night, she is late, she didn't get the bus or other vehicle. Now she is late, and she is being spotted by a group of guys who are drunk, and they molested her or they raped her. That will fall in this category, deviant place theory, because the place or the spot where the victim is, that is a deviant place, that is full of deviants, that is itself full of criminals. Contrary to legal approaches to crime, because I have already told you that in sociology, crime is more often considered as a threat to social integration, as a threat to social regulation and social control. That is why sociologists prefer the term deviant or delinquent rather than a criminal, because sociologists or social criminologists consider crime a legal term and not a sociological term. So, contrary to the legal approaches to crime, social, or we can also call it non legal approaches, social or non legal approaches to crime or to criminology, they regard crime as the violation of social code of a particular community, of course, and not the legal code. As I can point out, Marshall, Marshall Clinard, he has, however, maintained that this deviation has to be understood. When we say crime is a deviation from social norms or social code, deviation has to be understood. And he says that all deviations from social norms are not, however, crimes. Means if a person is deviating social codes, social norms, not all such deviations are crime. But he has categorized it. He talks of three types of deviations. First is tolerated deviation, means the deviation which can be tolerated by a particular society in a particular situation. Second is deviation which is mildly disapproved, which is disapproved but mildly. And the third deviation, according to Marshall Clinard, that is the deviation which is strongly disapproved. And to him, the third one, that is deviation mildly disapproved, deviation strongly disapproved. This third one is, he says that this is much opposed by society, and this is the only type of crime. This is, I have already told you that different sociologists and criminologists have proposed their different perspectives of explaining crime, and of course all of them, if not all of them, most of them have been subjected to severe criticism also. So according to Marshall, if certain actions are deviating the social norms, not all of them can be categorized into crime, but only those which are strongly disapproved by the society. I can give an example of alcoholism in Muslim dominated society like Kashmir. Though there are Muslim dominated Mohammedan societies like UAE or Dubai, etc., but alcoholism, and they have they don't have repressive laws for alcoholism or these clubs or all that, or even maybe prostitution. But talking about societies like Kashmir, this drug addiction or alcoholism, it, according to the Mohammedan law, it is a taboo. So we can say that taking alcoholism is strongly disapproved. And according to Marshall, such violations of norms, such violation which is a grave violation, which falls in the third category, that is, which I may call, which follows in the category of the taboo, they can be categorized as crime, but not legally. Again, I reiterate, because most of the sociologists say that we categorize things as crime, those things which are disapproved strongly, we can categorize them as crime, but our definition is not a legal definition. This point is already cleared by most of the discussions of sociologists, because sociologists regard it as a social problem, as a social phenomena, not a legal concern. That discussion will be cleared later. If we look at positivists, like positivism, I have separate lectures on positivism of Auguste Comte, or conservatives. They argue that there is a consensus of values. there is a consensus of values in the society that can be scientifically ascertained regarding the explanation of crime, regarding proposing and providing different perspectives to crime. And against those values, it can be judged whether an act is deviant or it is not deviant. But it must be subjected to scientific assertions. This is what positivists and conservatives believe. That is why they prefer the word, again, now the clarification of my previous point, that is why they prefer the word deviant to criminal. Means they use word deviant or deviance or delinquency rather than a criminal or crime, because the later term, that is crime, merely refers to violation of legal codes and not of social values. And this is a distinction which we must understand, that there are actually two perspectives. One is the sociological explanation of crime, to which most of the socialists have resorted, and another is the legal definition, which socialists have kept themselves at far. Then strength theorists like Marza and Klinard, contrary to the positivists, this is the internal contradiction between different perspectives and different sociologists or criminologists. Like positivists say their point, or conservatives, they believe that it has to be scientifically ascertained, and we don't agree with the term crime. We use the term deviant. But strength theorists, this is another perspective. The strength theory of crime, like Klinard and Marza, they are opposite to positivists, because they consider crime as an action which is dysfunctional to society. Simply, as I have pointed out to the discussion of Durkheim or Merton, whatever is dysfunctional to the society and the individual as well. Now, these two scholars, Klinard and Marza, they have included the individual as well. Means it is not the case that whatever violates the social functions, that is criminal activity, that is the scope of criminology. But whatever violates the individual rights, we can say, individual functions, that is the functions and rights of the individual also, not only of society but of individual also. That is why they consider not only theft as crime, not only robbery, but homicide, suicide, drug addiction, vandalism. Vandalism means willful or ignorant destruction of art and literary work. And they have even included suicide. That suicide is also in the scope of criminal. It is also a criminal activity, because not only the things which disturbs the society, they are crime, but which disturbs the individual, because individual is society. Thus, social perspective of crime not only explains it in terms of social, but also in terms of individual harm. So this is a point to be noted. Social harm, that will be crime. Individual harm, that will also fall in the same category. Now, criminologists with a sociological perspective, they have never claimed that there is no place for legal definition. Now, this is the clarification which I have mentioned, that it will be clear, the point will be clear, legal and social, it will be clear later on. Here is the clarification, that we should not have a false attribution here. We should not get confused that criminologists totally disagree with the legal definition of crime. No, criminologists with a sociological perspective, they have not claimed that there is no place for legal definition of crime. They have in fact drawn the attention towards the situations in which people do crime. And what is the main point here? What is the main purpose of social criminologists? The main purpose is to reach for the loopholes in the legal codes, to look into the loopholes of the legal codes and the social pressures which are responsible for crime, and criminal activities. For example, I can quote Ogburn here. He says he attributes that it is the cultural lag which is mainly responsible for crime. And similarly, according to Lamert, he says crime is due to defective social heredity. That is inadequate socialization. So we here in sociology or social criminology, the main focus is on highlighting the highlighting the loopholes, social loopholes, like inadequate socialization, as per Lamott. Similarly, the theory of multiple causation. This is another theory of crime, which reveals that there are social, political, cultural, and environmental factors of crime. So it is not going to be it is not going to fall in a single domain of law, in a single domain of legal system, because there are so many explanations of crime itself, even environmental factors, even biological factors, as I have pointed out the biological theory like by Caesar and Sheldon. So there are different perspectives to crime. Thus, there are different areas, different institutions in the society where the loopholes have to be traced, and they have to be corrected. Thus, if we generalize the crime or criminology as per sociological approach, it must have some special characteristics. That is, the behavior, it must be harmful in terms of its social impacts. In my previous lectures, I discussed Emile Durkheim, and wherein, particularly in the lecture of suicide, I have started the point that though Durkheim has defined suicide as well, or he has proposed the theory of social facts, but or social morphology in his, or if you look at the work, the rules of sociological method, the main point of Durkheim there was actually explaining the power of society vis-a-vis individual, how society controls the actions, the behaviors, the ways of thinking, the perspectives, everything of the individual. And similar is the case that if we look the sociological approach of crime, the behavior which has been done, that is the criminal behavior, it must be looked at in terms of its social impacts. Whatever impacts the society, that is crime, according to the sociological explanation. The sociological explanation of crime. The second characteristic of crime according to the sociological approach is that the harm should be legally forbidden. Of course, legal system will be taken into consideration, will be taken into account, that the actions which we say this is a crime, they must be legally forbidden. Then next, the criminal acts should be intentional. They must be intentional, because in his theory of madness and civilization, if I recall Michael Foucault, he poses a big question, that madness and civilization, is the mad person incorrect for society, or it is the rest of the people who are not mad who is incorrect? If we categorize the person who is mad, if we say he is mad, he is incorrect for society, it is we are giving our own perspective on him. Maybe he also has a similar perspective for us, that he is correct and rest of us, we are incorrect for the society, we are a pathology for society. So intentional, the activities which we regard as crime, they must be intentional, because if a mad person does an act, it will fall in no category. Last month I saw a video on Times of India that in a normal situation, in a normal market, everybody was busy with his or her own work, and a man is going on this side, and a mad person was coming on the either way. Suddenly the mad person, he bows down, he takes a brick and he throws it on the head of the bicycle rider. A man was riding on a bicycle, middle-aged man, and he dies on the spot. Are we going to blame the mad person? Because intention is something which is associated with mind, and if a person has no mind, he doesn't know he has no intentions. He doesn't know the meaning of harming people. How come can be he is accountable in the social system, or accountable in the legal system? So the point here is that the acts which we categorize as crime, they must be intentional. Next is, there should be a legal punishment against the act. For example, homosexuality. It is not a crime in one society, but it is a crime in another society. In the Arab world, it may be a crime. In US, it may be not a crime. In homosexuality is not a crime in the US, and it has been legalized in our country also, in India also. So saying that homosexuality is a crime, first of all, the criteria is that there must be a legal punishment for it. Then only we can say that it is a crime. This I am telling you, the sociological approach, the characteristics of the sociological approach. If we say something is crime, sociologically we say that something is crime, it must fall in this category, that there must be a legal punishment for it. Otherwise, maybe we cannot categorize as a crime. These are some characteristics of the sociological perspective of crime. And I will give some beautiful definitions or beautiful perspectives of various criminologists here, like reckless. Reckless is that social conditions which are responsible for crime. He has pointed out the social conditions, that is the condition theory, or what we say deviant place theory, or this lifestyle theory. So this perspective resembles those two major perspectives. The perspective of reckless, he attributes crime to social conditions. He says that social conditions are responsible for crime. Conditional approach. For example, a weak-willed man of poor personality structure. He is maladjusted, he is frustrated, he has no money, he has no good life. He may develop social hatred and finds an expression for that, for his anger, for his frustration through crime. So this is what Reckless has pointed out, that it is the social situation, social conditions. I have given an example in my previous lecture that no thief or no murderer or no killer is born a killer. He becomes a killer. He becomes a rapist. So that is what Reckless has pointed here, that it is the social conditions. So this is the beauty of this different criminologists, different sociologists, how they have given their different perspectives to crime, understanding crime. Similarly, Abrahamson, another scholar, he also has argued that frustrating social conditions are exclusively, now he is adding a stress on the point of Reckless. He says that frustrating conditions are not responsible, but only they are responsible. They are exclusively responsible for crime. For example, if an educated young man fails to get suitable job, what is he going to do? He is likely to be attracted by antisocial movements, by militancy activities, by this falling prey to being a drug lord or being a smuggler. So Abrahamson has also agreed with the perspective of Reckless. Another perspective is Tenenbaum. Tenenbaum says that he holds that social groups are responsible for crime. So he has given a group perspective to crime. because family disharmony or bad neighborhood give rise to lack of group cohesion. That is which I have already pointed out, lack of socialization. And this lack of group cohesion, lack of love, affection, or lack of socialization, this leads to crime. For example, the girl of a drunkard. I can give an example here. The girl of a drunkard. We have we may have already watched such a scene in so many Hindi movies, that a girl of a drunkard who comes late to home beats his wife and rapes her in front of the daughter. What is the daughter going to be? Most likely, what are the probabilities? Such a girl is likely to become a sex worker, a prostitute. So, according to Tenon, it is the group, it is the responsibility of the groups, because man lives in groups. If we recall Sumner, if we recall Cooley, if we recall the sociology of the groups, much stress is given to groups. In sociology of groups, the individual is controlled by the group, because family is a group, our neighborhood is a group, primary groups, secondary, tertiary groups. We have groups everywhere, because man can't survive in isolation. So that is where the role of Tanon's concept comes into play, that it is the groups which are responsible. Groups means family, because groups are available. Man lives in groups. We have even formal groups, we have informal groups, we have clubs, we have office, we have our workplace. So according to Tenon, it is the group which has to be blamed. It is the lack of harmony, it is the lack of socialization which is responsible for crime and criminal activities. I can give you certain types of crime also, which have been discussed by Howard Becker. So with these types, this will be certain things will be highlighted actually, because Becker has given 4 major different types of crime. He says that there are crimes which are related to an individual, that is individual crimes, which only one individual, where only one individual is involved. It involves a psychiatric explanation. So most of this type, that is individual crime, they fall in the domain of a psychiatric explanation, individual crimes. Next is group supported. Group supported, according to Howard, it has also been discussed by Sutherland. I have already mentioned his differential association theory, where youth are persuaded by peer groups. So group supported, as I was discussing the importance of groups in the role of groups in crime. So group supported crime is second category. Then organized crime, which has a formal body to commit certain crimes for money. So the main want here, main point here is to get money, which was first referred by Cohen. And then the 4th type of crime is situational crime, which has been discussed by Marza, that individuals do crime when situations demand. That is the situational explanation of crime. When they found an easy access to crime, easy access to the rewards of crime, we can say, with less harm. When the individuals feel that there is less harm, they fall in this category, the situational type of crime. And I think this is what I have for today in crime, in explaining the different perspectives of crime and criminology. We have pointed out different sociological perspectives of crime, like social disorganization as an explanation, social pathology, the perspective which focuses on social pathology, like Emile Durkheim and R.K. Merton. Then I have pointed out Sutherland's differential association theory, where he focuses on the crime-prone situation or then the control theory, which examines the connection between criminal behavior and weaknesses or absence of social bonds and social ties. Then we have also discussed Marshall Clinard, which has given three major perspectives, like tolerated deviation, or tolerated crime, mildly disapproved and strongly disapproved. Then we have also pointed the perspective of positivists and conservatives, strength theorists, and the basic explanation of crime in most criminologists, where we have I have said that mostly sociologists they resort to the use of the term social rather than legal. Then we have also given certain characteristics of crime in sociology, and various major perspectives, major theories like biological theory, deviant place theory, lifestyle theory, victim precipitation theory, victim blaming theory, etc. And if I can give you certain references here as further reading, like A Sociology of Crime by Stephen Hester and Peter Eglin. And similarly, we have some good Indian authors also, like Criminology by Ram Ahuja and Criminology and Penology by Dr. R.K. Sharma. And hope this lecture on criminology will benefit you. And if you want to uh, give some addition to my discussion, please comment in the comment section. Have a nice day.